Hello and welcome everyone on the Information Technology and Service Management PCB webinars. My name is Vlerar Shala, the PCB organizer of this webinar, and today's topic is Service Catalog among Frameworks and Standards. This webinar will be presented by Mr. Yahia Al Anwar, and Mr. Yahia is a senior IT service management and project management consultant of Egypt with more than 20 years of international experience in ITSM, systems management, and security and infrastructure. Please write your questions and comments in the question box in the right hand control panel, or you may use the option to raise your hand, and Mr. Yahia will answer to them in the end of the presentation. Please, Mr. Yahia, you may start the presentation.
Thank you, Vlerar, and good morning, everybody. I hope that you are all doing fine. And I wish today that we can introduce yourself to you some of the most important service management process and tool that is used by the IT departments and the IT organizations in order to market their services to their customers. As Mr. Vlerar said, the topic is service catalog among standards and frameworks. This presentation will be a comparison between multiple standards and frameworks that are most likely to be implemented in companies. Companies seeking quality and seeking value introduction to their customers will always try to find frameworks and best practices and standards to implement in their companies in order to give value to their customers. One of the most important things is the service catalog, and we will discuss it in detail next slide. Our contents will be, we will define what is a service catalog, and what are the service catalog views, and what should the service catalog have as a content, and also what did the IT service management say about service catalog, and also the discussion will go through the standards and the frameworks like ITIL Framework, ISO 20000 standard, COBIT 5 governance framework, and what actually happens in the real life, and we will give you some of our experiences that we have done in many projects, and we are happy to share this information with you. And finally, we'll have questions in case someone of you would like to ask any question about this seminar. First of all, what is a service catalog? I will say firstly, just to make you understand what is the service catalog is. Service catalog is simply a marketing and a service focusing tool that the service provider use in order to make value to their customers and let their customers understand what do we provide, on which terms, and what are the support conditions that we offer with our services. So a service catalog is a collection of all IT-related services delivered by an IT organization to its customer, and it is used as a marketing tool for the IT services, whether these services are business services that are supported by IT services or a pure IT service. What is a business service that is supported by an IT service? If you look for banking services, for instance, now you can go to our website, check your balance, and you can make e-commerce, and you can even buy and sell and use the internet as a way of doing business and trade. Even you will have to get your banking information and your Visa card, for instance, in order to buy things over the internet. If we looked inside, this is a business service, as selling and trade is not an IT service. But it depends on the IT services underneath it that will make it available to customers all over the internet, or even sometimes you might give your customers pure IT services, like you might give them a directory services, you might give them database services, you might give them web hosting services. So this is the tool or the document that you write in it whatever the services that you deliver to your customers, whether they are business supported by IT or pure IT services. We have multiple cases, we have multiple examples. Example, the web hosting companies that sell pure IT services like a web hosting and email services, domain registration services, all of these are pure IT services. Well, this service catalog can be as simple as a spreadsheet. For instance, you can write all the services and all the data and the information related to it in an Excel file, and you can show it to your customers, so your customers can easily know exactly what you sell to them. And it might be a complex application that will be linked to all the parties of the service provision, whether the internal IT support guys or even the departments and data centers connected to these services. We will know which one of them will be presented to the customer and which one of them will be presented to the support team. The service catalog has an analogy with the menu that you find when you go to a restaurant. If you went to a restaurant and you want to know what are the food that this restaurant sells you, you will ask the waiter to give you a catalog of all the services or even the sandwiches and meals that this restaurant sells you. So you need this catalog to be presented to you in a way that helps you to choose among the different options that the service provider sells you in their restaurants. So, is this catalog, if I design this catalog, is it valuable to the business, whether this business is my business as an IT or the business that is using my IT services? Well, we will see that the service catalog provides a central source of information on the IT services, and this central information is an authentic one as it is produced from the service provider himself or the service provider delivering the services. So this is a central trusted source of information on all the IT services delivered by the service provider's organization. This ensures that all areas of the business that uses the service provider services can view an accurate, consistent picture of the IT services. What are their details and their status? Is these services running? Is these services about to run, or are these services retired services? Sometimes you might say that these services we do not deliver anymore. You have to mention this in the service catalog. So if you did this and you have produced your service catalog, this will ensure that you and your customers have a common understanding of the IT services delivered from you to your customers. So if the customer, for instance, heard that you sell web hosting services, what is web hosting services? Sometimes the customer might understand the service name as something like this, and you understand it as another thing. So you have to use the tool in order to describe exactly what are these services. In such way, you will ensure this common understanding. Also, if you did so, you will have an improved relationship between you and your customers, as the relationship will be based on a clear understanding. And also, this will help the service provider know after a while which services are required mostly by the business and which services do customers consider valuable to them and which services are not as much important as others. In such case, the service provider, after a while, will know which services to focus on, and this focus will be also directed to the customer's real needs. If you did so, if you have this focus, you will have an improved effectiveness. What is effectiveness? Effectiveness is doing what the customer needs, doing the right thing. This is effectiveness. So when you provide these services, you have an effective approach when dealing with your customers. Okay, and in such case, you will also gain a good focus on what the business considers as valuable services. Why? Because as you can see, the hits that will come onto certain services from the service catalog, you will decide easily which of them is valuable to the business and which is not. If you reach this point and you are a company or a service provider seeking quality, you will give much more attention to these services that are considered valuable to your customer. That's why this tool is very valuable to you as a service provider and also valuable to the business. And this is the value that service catalog will deliver to your business and your customer's business. So we knew what is a service catalog. We knew what is the value of the service catalog. So what are the contents or the most generic contents that will be written and described in a service catalog? Well, actually, this depends on the environment and the situation that you have. Of course, you know that we have 3 types of service providers. These 3 types are described in ITIL, the most famous framework in the IT service management, as service provider type 1, service provider type 2, and service provider type 3. Service provider type 1 is called the internal service provider. In such case, the service provider will deliver his services to the internal customers in his company. Type 2 is called a shared service unit, where the service provider will provide service to multiple branches related also to his business. Type 3 service provider is the last type, and this is called the external service provider. This one sells his services to anyone in the market that needs their services. So we have 3 types of service providers. Each of them will certainly need the service catalog. So the contents that will be written for type 1 or type 2 or type 3 will be dependent on the situation or the type that you have chosen as a strategy for you to deliver your services. Typically, a service catalog will contain information such as what is the service name. You have to describe or give a service a common name that most people know in the market. Should choose a name that is typically understood by most of the customer and the market that you are working in. And then it is not enough that you just write the service name. This is not enough. Perhaps if you wrote a service name, I might understand that this service should include 1 and 2 and 3 options. In such case, this is a very ambiguous definition. The second field will clear this ambiguity, which is the service description field. You have to describe exactly what is these services. For instance, if you say email services, this is the service name. What is the description? The description is providing an online email service or a desktop email service that will work in most of the email client application used on the desktop, or whatever you will give. Like if you can give, you also can give an internet and a desktop email service. You have to describe exactly the service name in the field called service description. Okay, suppose that I will give you an email service and I am a web hosting company. I will give you a service name named email services. Description, it is an online or an internet and a desktop email services. Okay, what are the supported products? What is the supported product? For instance, you might say that I support Microsoft Exchange 5.5, Microsoft Exchange 2000, Microsoft Exchange 2013, and you have to describe exactly what are the supported products. As well, you can say that I support PopMail version, for instance, 1 or 2 or 3. So you have also to mention the products that will give you this service. So I can have a service name and multiple products can deliver this service. You can use, for instance, Microsoft mail services, or a Linux mail services, a Unix mail services, Banyan, Novell, whatever. You have to say also and mention in the service catalog the supported products that will support your service. And you can give this also for web hosting. You can say we give web hosting services. The description is a web hosting services that will give you a storage of whatever gigabytes and whatever, and you mention in the supported products that we support Microsoft Internet Information Server version 6, and you can say as well that we support Apache, the Linux service number 1 and 2 or 3, or whatever the version of it. So you have service name, a description of the service, and also the supported products. Okay, depending on your strategy for service delivery, you will decide the fourth column or the fourth field, which is the service hours. Okay, your strategy is saying that if I want to deliver a 24/7 service, you will decide that service hours are 24/7, or 8/5 services, or 8/7 services by 365 days. This is the service hours that you are obligated to deliver your service to your customers. And also, the next field will be the policies governing the relation between you and your customer, and how the customers are supposed to request the service from you. What are the procedures that they should follow in order to take this? For instance, you have to call the extension 112 in order to take the service, or you have to log in for the site, whatever the names of the site, and you have to register your name and email and phone number, and call you in order to.
Mr. Yahia, sorry for interrupting you, but we can't see the slides. Can you try to change the slides? Because we are seeing only the first slide only.
Oh, I'm in the fourth. Okay, can you see the contents now?
No.
Okay, let me see. Can you see now?
No,
Contents?
maybe it's maybe it's better to open again the presentation slides. Now, yeah, now we can see. Okay, can you try please to change another slides? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it's good.
Number 1.
Yeah, now it's good. Just
and this is.
You may continue. Now it's all right. You may continue, please.
Okay, sir.
Sorry
so
for
we have,
interrupting.
no problem, sir. Thank you very much. This is the first one. This is the cover one, the cover page, and these are the contents. These are the service catalog, the description. This slide talks about the value of the service catalog to the business, and this is the contents. This is the current described slide. I hope that you all see it now. we have described the service name. Again, the service name is the service that you give. For instance, web hosting services. The service description will say that this web hosting services is given to you for 24/7, and it is about hosting for the internet, and you can have 25 gigabyte storage and so on. The supported products, you can say that we support Internet Information Server version 6, for instance, and we support Apache server version whatever, and you can say this in the supported products field. The service hours, you can decide whether it is 24/7 or, for instance, 8/5, 8/7, whatever. You have to decide and mention the service hours in this field. Then we have reached the policies that govern the relationship between you and your customers that are supposed to buy these services or use these services from you. And then we reached this point, which is requesting procedures. What should the customers do in order to request services from you? And for instance, you might say that you have to send me an email and I will give you my service, or even you can log into a web page and request it via this button by giving your details, and so on. And this should also be written in the service catalog. Suppose that someone is trying to take the service and cannot order it. You have to give them another path for escalation, whether they are an escalation related to ordering procedures, escalation to problems, or they have incidents or problems facing them while they are using the service. You have to also to give them the escalation paths. For instance, in case you have problem, please send email to support@company.com, or you can say please call number 112, for instance, and this will be the escalation path. Or you can send the email to the service owner, which is his mail and phone number is like so. This is the escalation path field. Support groups. Sometimes you might need to mention which group in the IT organization will support this service. For instance, web hosting team, infrastructure team, security team, whatever. You have to decide who are the support groups that will support this service. Also, it is a very good idea that you assign someone that is taking the role of service owner. A service owner, in short, is a person that will look, that is an IT person, that will look on the service with the eyes of the customer. So he will see what the business will look and say about the service that he provides, or the company that is working in, or the organization of the IT is delivering to its customers. In such case, you have assigned a quality person, a quality maintaining and keeper person. This person is called service owner. This service owner is essential in order to achieve quality for the services. You can also mention the service owner, and if these services are assigned a service level agreement, as the name indicates, a service level agreement is an agreement between the service provider and the customer and the users as well of this service. The customer of the service will sign a service level agreement with the service provider in order to achieve some quality criteria about the service, like the capacity of the service, the availability of the service, the continuity in case of disaster recovery conditions, and also the service, the security level of these services. Along with many information that we've written in a document named service level agreement. And these service level agreement will be assigned numbers, and it can be mentioned as one of the fields in your service catalog. As we have mentioned that we have 3 types of service providers. Type 3 is called the external service provider. Like, for instance, Hotmail, Google, and these services will offer services to customers. Sometimes these services are payable. They have to pay in order to gain and use these services. In such case, if you are this type, if you are one of the type of these service providers, you have to mention the cost of the service that the customer will pay, and also the chargeback agreement that will happen between you and the customer. Actually, these are the most typical fields written in service catalog. You can write less and you can add more, so this part is open until you finish all what is needed in order to describe correctly and make your customer ready to request the service and escalate in case of problems, and know whose person, which equipment, which the center is supporting the service, and so on. So we have many fields also that can be added to the service catalog. This will be your homework that you will do in order to give a full descriptive service catalog. Perhaps you might start by these contents, and you can day by day improve the contents until it reaches valuable content for you and your customers. You are encouraged to add more top fields to your service catalog. As we have said that you mentioned too many fields, Yahya, you have mentioned too many fields. One of the fields was the service owner's name and email and telephone number. Actually, this information will not be valuable to the customer, as the customer should not talk to the service owner directly. Why? Because as the best practice mentioned, you have to assign a service desk to be an interface between the IT community and the customers using the services. In case customers have problems and users of the service have problems with your service, for instance, they should not talk directly to the people of IT. This entity or function, which is called the service desk, should be the interface between them. Okay, in such case, the service owner field that we have mentioned before is not suitable for the customer. But actually, we have to see and we have to decide who will see the service catalog, who is entitled to see the service catalog. Why? Because you will have to design a service catalog that will suit all the people's needs, and all the people needs, whether they are IT or business using the service. So you have two main viewers for this service catalog. The first view is the customer, who will have some users that will be using your IT services or business supported by IT services. And also you have technicians that need to see this information about these services and know details about the service. What are the service level agreement terms that they should abide to in order to not breach the service level agreement terms and conditions. So you have two main viewers, customers and technicians. In such case, you shouldn't make the information related to the internal IT department that will not suit the needs of the customer available to the customer, and also you will not need some information that is related totally to the customer that will not make any use or any importance to the service desk. In such case, or the support groups. In such case, you have to design two views. The first view is a customer-facing service catalog view, and the second view is a technical-facing service catalog view. Each view should be designed in order to suit the needs of each of the viewers. Okay, this is service catalog, in general. And it is mainly discussed in the IT service management field. So we have an information technology service management field that are concerned about delivering IT services. And these services, as described in the ITSM, should be aligned to the objectives of the business and what actually their needs are, and support achieving them. So we will ask ourselves, how many frameworks and standards will be involved in IT service management? Actually, in IT service management, we have many frameworks and standards and approaches that are related to IT service management. But as we have seen in the market of IT service management, there are three main frameworks and standards that are highly appreciated by the people in the IT field. The first standard are ITIL Framework, version 3 or 2011 edition, and COBIT 5, as well as a standard named ISO 20000, ISO 27001. These are the main standards and frameworks that mostly the IT field ask the consultants or even the departments in order to implement them inside their organization and management structure. So, what does these frameworks and standards say about service catalog? Now we will go through each one of the three, the ITIL, the COBIT, and the ISO 20000, in order to see what does each one of them say about the service catalog. The first one is the ITIL framework, the most famous framework in the IT service management. And this is the most required and needed to be implemented in the business nowadays. It is the ITIL framework. Of course, all of you might know about ITIL more than I can imagine. So, in general, ITIL framework, some people like to describe it as it is the art of service delivery. It is how you deliver valuable services. This framework will teach you and let you know what are the best practices that are used in the field of IT service management. It is a very valuable framework and piece of information that you will need to know in order to deliver quality services. And this is the most famous framework in the field of IT service management, and currently a company named Axelos owns this ITIL framework's intellectual property. ITIL has evolved in UK and Netherlands 1989, and it was seeking the best practices that should be used in the IT service management, and it was used by the government of UK and Netherlands. Later on, they produced a second version, and since this second version, it was commercially available to all IT companies that used this ITIL version 2, and it added too much value to them. Days passed, and then people started to struggle and say that we need more purification and improvement in ITIL version 2 in order to gain more value and good understanding of the quality services. Version 3 started to emerge, and it started to define separate processes for the service catalog, and we will see these later on, and it adopted a concept called Lifecycle Approach. ITIL depends on a life cycle. This life cycle says that the core of service delivery is that the service provider should, first of all, ask himself, why do we have to deliver services, before asking himself, how should we deliver this service? Actually, why questions will be answered by strategic actions. So the core, the middle ring inside, is the service strategy. The service provider should develop a service strategy for himself. Depending on this service strategy, he will go to a design stage, and then the design stage will go to a transition stage, and this transition stage will take the design into the concept and start building, testing, and implementing and deploying the services in the IT field or the IT environment which users use the services. After a while, this service will be operated for a while, and after, as you know, after operating services, problem starts to arise, and you will have to see many flows in that services. In such case, you need a continual service improvement that will improve these services. Okay. ITIL describes 26 processes that are essential for any IT department in order to deliver their best services that they have. But actually, service catalog is mentioned in two major processes in ITIL. The first process is named Service Portfolio Management, and this one is strategy stage process, and the other process is dedicated for the service catalog itself as a product, and it is in a design stage of the ITIL framework. Well, the first process, which is the service portfolio management, is considered the core of strategy. And since the strategy is the core of ITIL, then the core of ITIL is the service portfolio management process. This service portfolio management process is a process that makes sure that the service provider have the right mix of services needed by the customer, and it should be delivered by the service provider for their customers, but in an affordable way. So this mix of services will be three types of services. First one is the future services that the service provider is intending to deliver to the customer. And the second type of this mix is the current services that are actually being delivered now to the service provider's customers. The third type of services is the retired services that we have delivered to our customers and we no more deliver them. All of these information should be stored in three databases named pipeline and catalog services and retired. Pipeline will indicate the future. The current services, the catalog will be the current services we deliver, and the retired services are named the retired services that we have been delivering and now we do not anymore deliver them. This process, as you can see, has the middle one, middle content, which is the current services that are being delivered to the customers, and this is the catalog. As you see, the service portfolio management will produce these three databases. One of them is a complete service catalog information. A complete, which is the service name, service description, service type, the supported products, the supporting groups, the delivery hours, the policies that govern the relation, the cost of the service, how the customer should use some procedure in order to order these services, and what are the escalation paths, what are the chargeback policies, and who will own this service, and how the service will be run, or which conditions should be run, and what are the policies. All of these information will be produced by the process named Service Portfolio Management, and precisely in the middle database, which is called the Catalog Service. This is the first process that is talking about Service Catalog as a product. But actually, all this information needs to be filtered out. Some of them will be directed to the customer in a way that makes the customer have some kind of excitement in buying this service. You have to give a view for the customer that will attract them in order to buy these services from the. This is called the customer-facing service catalog. And then you have to design another view by filtering out information that are much more suitable for support groups to see. So you have to design something called the technical facing service catalog. Service catalog will have to be designed for both views, the one that the service that the customers will use and the one that the technical support guys will use in order to support these services. This process in particular is a copy from the one that has been mentioned in the service portfolio management process. This copy is being sorted out into the needs of each of the viewers, which these viewers are the customer or the business facing service, the business facing and the technical facing service. ITIL mentions that in order for this process to run correctly, you have to define, assign some people for doing some roles in this process. Actually, generally, the ITIL describes for each process 3 roles. The first one is called as a process owner, and the second role is called the process manager, and the third one is the third role is called a process practitioner. The process owner is responsible for the health of the process and the measurement and the policies and the plans that should be done in order for this process to run correctly, and how to liaison between this process that he owns and other processes and their owners. This is the role of the service owner. In the service catalog management process, ITIL has described a role called SCM. SCM stands for Service Catalog Manager. The Service Catalog Manager is responsible for managing the production of an accurate and updated service catalog, and also is responsible for managing the performance of the process and seeing how much the service catalog is aligned to the business needs. And also, he has to measure the efficiency and effectiveness of this process. Is it doing the right thing, and is it doing things right or not? These are the effectiveness and the efficiency of the process. Also, he has to manage the production of the both views that we have mentioned earlier in order to suit the needs of both customers and technical support team. This was the service catalog and how it was mentioned in ITIL. We have another standard that is highly needed to be implemented in IT companies and IT organizations. This standard is called ISO IEC 20000 standard. The ISO IEC standard is a service management system standard, and it specifies some requirements for the service provider in order to make sure that the service provider is able to plan and to establish, implement, operate, monitor and review, maintain and improve a service management system. Actually, the requirements include what the ITIL has said. It is design stage, the transition stage, the delivery stage, and also the improvement stage in which the services should be improved to fulfill the agreed service requirements. This is the ISO 27, and it is used by many companies seeking to be quality assured companies that have requirements that will make them distinguished among other service providers. So this is mostly needed by companies who seek consistent approach by all services, by all service providers, those also that are supplying services externally who are called the supply chain. Also, the service provider, if the service provider is competing to outsource their services to customers, they should gain the certificate of ISO 27, and this certificate is highly appreciated in the field of IT, and the companies that have this logo or this certificate in their website will have a privilege over those who don't have this certificate. Actually, ISO 20000 has many requirements. These requirements are divided into areas. First area is the service management system, the management responsibility, the documents and things like this. And they have the design and transition change service area. It is divided into service delivery area, into resolution area, relationship area, and control area. Each area of them will designate and tell you that we need requirements in some of the processes that will fulfill the service delivery or the resolution area or the relationship area or the control area. If you have a look, you will see that we have the service level management, and this service level management is the core of the service delivery area. The one in blue, if you can see it correctly from your slide. This is the service level management process. Okay. The ISO 20000 will give you requirements that will start with the clause number 4. As the ISO 20000 is divided into 9 clauses. Each clause will discuss some part of this standard. Like clause 1 will talk about the scope, the normative references, terms and conditions, and definitions, and then the service management system requirement. This is the first thing that the auditors that will give you the certificate will come and ask you about the requirements of such service management system and the design and transition and the service delivery processes, relationship processes, resolution processes, and finally the control processes. These requirements starting from 4 till it reaches 9, we have about 396 requirements. These requirements should be fulfilled in order that the company will gain a certificate ISO 20000, which is a service management certificate. So, if this is the ISO 20000, and it is highly appreciated, as you have said, Yahya, in the webinar, so where is exactly the service catalog mentioned as a process? Actually, it is not mentioned frankly. It is not mentioned boldly. It is not mentioned as a separate service catalog management process. How this happens? Actually, if you have an experience and you know ITIL version 2, which is the basis that the ISO 20000 has been built on, you will see that in ITIL version 2, service catalog was not mentioned separately as a process. It was a category inside the process named service level management. So what happened is that when the ISO 20000 standard has been developed, it didn't mention the service catalog as a separate requirement or a separate process found in the ISO 20000 service management system standard. But you can see that we have clauses that we have discussed in the previous slide. In such clauses, you will find requirements divided by numbers. If you have a deep look inside 20000 standard, ISO 20000, and you are seeking the implementation of this standard in your company, in order, or your IT organization, in order that you show off that you have a quality service management system, then you will have to dig inside each of these clauses. In clause 4, section 3, you will see that the service catalog is mentioned as a requirement, not describing any process that will do it except in the contents of the service level management. You will find this in clause 4.3, which is the documentation management. Also, if you have a look on ISO 20000 standard, you will find that it is also mentioned in clause 5.3, which is design and development of new or changed services, even though it was not mentioned as a separate process. It will be asked as a requirement in 4.3, in 5.3, and finally in 6.1, which is a frank talking about service level management. Even though it is required, it is not mentioned as a separate process. The definition of this process will not be found in ISO 20000 standard, but will be asked to be found as a document that you have an evidence of quality in your ISO 20000 certificate audit for your own IT organization. So, even though the ISO 20000 doesn't mention a service catalog process, a separate process for it, then even though you will have to implement service catalog management process and produce both views of the service catalog in order to achieve the ISO 20000 certificate. The third needed framework in the field of IT is the COBIT 5. COBIT 5 is concerned about the IT enterprise governance. It is not an IT service management, even though it includes inside the framework relation to the service management, as we will see in the next slide. This framework is the latest edition of ISACA's globally accepted framework. It provides an end-to-end business view of the governance of enterprise IT, and this will reflect the central role of information and technology in creating value to the enterprises, whatever the size of these enterprise is. First of all, the definition of governance is not a very solid definition. It is not as solid as other definitions, even though they are saying that the establishment of policies and the continuous monitoring of their proper implementation by the members of the governing body of an organization, this means that you have governance. But this is a business or corporate governance. It includes also the mechanisms required to balance the powers of the members and the primary duty of enhancing prosperity and the viability of their organizations. This is the top governance. We are not related directly to top governance as we are related only to IT, even though this IT will have its own governance that will be derived from the corporate governance. But the governance in IT ensures that the stakeholders' needs and conditions, options are good and are well evaluated to determine the balance of agreed on enterprise objectives be achieved. And thus, if this is clear, you will set clear direction that will prioritize and make your decision making good for the performance and the compliance for an agreed on direction and objectives. Governance of enterprise IT will do three main things. It will achieve benefits required by the business. It will optimize resources while achieving these benefits, and optimizing doesn't mean cutting costs, like just cutting costs. It is an optimization that will not yield to other risks. So you have to optimize the resources as well as optimizing the risk. Both will be done while you achieve the benefits of the enterprise. The content of COBIT 5 is a very interesting content. Actually, COBIT 5 has done something very good. It has incorporated all the frameworks and standards in the IT service management and the governance field, and have combined them into an integrated framework. As you can see, the COBIT consists of the layer over there, the blue area, the dark blue area, which is the governance area, and the management area. The governance area is concerned with ISO 38500 standard, and inside the management area you will find ITIL, you will find ISO 20000, and you will find CMMI to GAF, Prince to project management approaches, risk management approaches, and the security approaches. So the COBIT 5, which is one of the standards and one of the frameworks that people also seek to implement in their company, and particularly in projects called GRC projects. GRC projects are governance, risk, and compliance framework, which will be merged inside the corporate governance framework in organizations, in normal business organizations. So we will have inside COBIT 5 the ITIL. So these are the processes, which are 37 processes concerned with that are the contents of the COBIT 5. The first 5 of them, as I'm showing you now, the first 5 in the top is the governance processes, and the blue area is the management processes that should include ITIL and so on. Okay, if we look at the 37 processes which has been developed by COBIT 5 in details in something called the process reference model, you will find 35 processes here. We will try to see where is the value that the COBIT has done. Actually, COBIT has done a very good value for both the implementers and the business, the IT implementers and the business. Actually, you can say that there are drivers that drive stakeholders' needs towards the 3 things that any stakeholder will need. First of all, the stakeholder in a business would like to realize benefits from the businesses and optimize the risk while optimizing the resources, while optimizing the risks as we deliver these benefits. So COBIT 5 made something very beneficial and very useful for IT people. It has started to cascade these goals from business perspective into IT perspective. Look, what they have done here is that they have cascaded the stakeholder needs into something called enterprise goals. These enterprise goals will be cascaded, has been cascaded by COBIT into something called IT related goals, and then it has been cascaded into tangible enabler goals, which are the 37 processes that we have seen in the previous slides. This is one of the mapping. Actually, this picture is small, I know, but in case you want to refer, you can easily go to isaiah.org and download your own version of COBIT 5 introduction. You can see how the goals are interpreted, how the goals are being cascaded from the business perspective into final IT enablers or processes in the service catalog, in the COBIT 5 framework. But when you see the cascades into the enabler goals, and you see that these enablers are 37 processes. The question here is the service catalog discussed in the COBIT 5 framework or not? And the question is it a separate process that has been developed by the COBIT team or not? The answer is there is no process defined for service catalog in the COBIT 5 framework. Wow, this is very strange. Why? Because as we have seen in the integrated framework slide, the COBIT has included ITIL inside it. So why doesn't the COBIT 5 mention a separate process in the COBIT or governance IT enterprise framework? Actually, it is not a separate process, even though if you can go deeper into the processes in the APO area, inside the management area, you will find that the definition of a service portfolio management process has been done in the APO or align, plan, or organize area of the COBIT 5. So there is a service portfolio, and we can easily know that the service portfolio will produce the three containers that we have mentioned before. The first one is the future, which is the pipeline container, and the next is the current, which we are seeking now in our discussion, which is the service catalog and the retired services. So even though it is not a separate process, it will be mentioned inside the service portfolio management exactly in APO 06, which is managed portfolio. So the COBIT 5 also, if you want to implement it as a framework or a GRC framework in your company, you will have to make a service catalog. You will have to design a service catalog. You will have to run a service catalog process. As we can see, that the service catalog is now mentioned in the most and the very widely implemented frameworks in the world. So what to do if I want to implement GRC framework in my company, and I want to implement, for instance, an ISO 20000 certification in my company and the ITIL 20. What should I do? Now, after discussing these topics, I can tell you from the real experience that we have faced in our projects. We do implement ITIL and 20000 in many companies in the Middle East, North Africa area. We actually advise our customers to firstly look at ITIL. Why? Because ISO 20000, if you want to seek ISO 20000, you will have many requirements. If you want to see the requirements, they are process requirements. If you want to implement this process, in order to get these requirements, you will have to find a definition for these requirements or these processes, and you will find it inside ITIL. If you want to make a governance enterprise IT in your company framework, then you will have to go for COBIT 5. COBIT 5 also incorporates ITIL inside. So the wise decision to make is that firstly you have to implement ITIL, and not just ITIL. ITIL is 26 processes. This is an enormous number if you want to implement in the first time. So you will have to choose the most related processes to the standards or to the framework that you want to implement in your company. You will make sure to make the service catalog one of these processes. In such case, you go to the step 2. You have firstly to design a customer-facing service catalog view. This view is the most important and the easiest one to implement in order to marketize your services, and also to give an evidence in case you have an ISO 20000 audit or a GRC audit. You have to make sure that you have this type of view designed and implemented into your company. And after such a view, you cannot go deeper unless you have implemented a sophisticated and very important milestone process. This milestone process is called Service Assets and Configuration Management Process. This is one of the 26 important processes in ITIL. If you have this process implemented correctly in your company or in your organization, then you most probably know the configuration of each service and how it is related underneath supporting services. In such case, you will be able to design the next view, which is called the technical facing service catalog view. If you did these steps as given to you now, you will have a very strong service catalog management process and also products that will suit the needs of both your customers and your technical people. Finally, I hope this will be a good guidance for you when you implement the service catalog in your company, or even when you want to seek the ISO 20000 certification or the governance certification or the GRC projects that you will run. And I will be glad now to have your questions. And I can see No handouts. I'd like to ask if any one of you would like to ask any question. I'm ready and happy to answer you. The stage is for you now, Virar.
Mr. Yahia, thank you very much for this great presentation and very informative in the same time. Now is the time for questions. Already we have two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
The first one is from your experience, what can you say how much a good catalog can attract the customers?
Okay. Actually, it depends, as we have said, that we have three types of service providers. The service providers are, again, three types. The type one is called the internal service provider, who is a service provider that will sell his services to the internal departments in his company. And the second one is selling also to all branches in his company, while the third one is the most type is related to a good design of service catalog, which is called the service provider type 3. Even though the third one will be the most one concerned with the service catalog, the internal service providers like type 1 and type 2 will need to sell their services even if they are not taking an actual monetary value, a nominal value even though. So the best service catalog that will be attractive to your customers is the service catalog focusing on the most valuable services to your customers. Try to play on the needs of your customer. By knowing the needs of your customer, you can decide which services are mostly needed by your customer. If you started to make these services available in a valuable way, you know that when you design a service, you have to design two things. You have to design the service itself, which is called the utility, and this will be fit for purpose. And you have also to design these functions and utility that will be suitable for the need of the customer, which is the fitting for use, and it is called the warranty branch. The warranty branch means that you will give the right capacity for the service, the right availability level of the service, the right continuity service, or the right continuity terms or conditions for the service, and also the security levels for your service. So the most and highly appreciated service catalog is the catalog that will address the actual and prioritized needs of your customers. So when you design it, you have to design it based on these factors. You have to know also the preferences of your customers, the perception of your customers, what they actually need and what you are actually delivering. And the last thing is the outcomes, which is the outcome is the result from using the services that they do. So try to confess and try to make sure that you show what is the value in your services that you deliver to your customers. I think this is the best service catalog that will be used by customers and will be valuable for both you and them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yahia. The second question is one of the attendees has asked, which are some of the methods to measure the efficiency and effectiveness of the catalog?
Well, as we have said, the service catalog will come in multiple forms. You can print it out, you can make it as a background in some computers, and you can also make an Excel sheet. And the best of them is to be a portal. Why? If you have a portal, you can get some statistics from this portal, like how many hits has happened on a period of time on the service catalog portal. This will give you an indication of how much the service catalog is being used. What are the areas that mostly use the service catalog? And which services are highly addressed by the customers in your service catalog. So it is essential for measuring that you will have some kind of automation. This automation will give you some kind of statistics, and there are many applications that support this. You have many IT service management tools in the field that you can use. Some of them are free, and some of them are, of course, paid for. You have about, I think, 300 free tools in the IT service management tools in the field. And you have also, cheap application that will give you these statistics, and you have high-end version that will cost multiple millions of dollars, of course. So in either cases, in any case, you can use a tool that will automate the measurements. If you want to see the efficiency, see how much hits you get on your service catalog website or portal, and see which services are highly addressed, and you should give it the highest priority, and you should make it accessible, and even though the first appearance will be them, in order that you will address the needs directly to your customers. So measurement will be how much it is effective for your customer, how much it is efficient in giving all the information in the right way or not, and is it compliant also to your strategy and to your company's legislation and legal conditions and rules.
Mr. Yahia, thank you again for this great presentation and for answering the questions. Also, I want to thank all the attendees for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this webinar. And you can check PCB's webinar schedule in our website www.pcb.com. Also, I want to inform you that next Tuesday we are hosting a webinar on the topic Quality Management System Risk Assessment. Thank you very much, and see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.